Shalom, friends! Welcome to Orange Socks, a podcast celebrating Jewish creativity. I'm your host, Yitzchok Moully, inviting you to join me in exploring the soul of Jewish expression. Welcome to episode 2 of the Orange Socks podcast. Today we have on Dalia Shusterman Blum, an incredible creative, an incredible journey, a really amazing journey. Learned a lot of things from her, and I'm sure you will too. So enjoy this episode. We've moved on to video. The audio and video aren't exactly where I want it to be, but we're keep on getting the production quality better. So enjoy the episode. Let me know your thoughts. Hello, Dalia. Welcome.
Thank you so much.
This is the second episode of Orange Socks podcast. This is new for me, and it's exciting. So thank you so much for taking time out of your schedule to come on and we'll share a little bit of your orange socks, a little bit of your creativity, your creative process, and so on. And I'll be honest, I've never heard your music.
Really? Wow, I don't know why that is.
You have incredible music.
So you've heard?
So I've heard that, but it's you and an all-female band, and the halacha of men not listening to female voices. I've missed out, so you got to tell me about it. But let's start with the origin story. How did you come to create? Why do you create? How did this all come about?
I think, ever since I could remember, I just kind of related to the creative process. It was just, I was super, I think by nature, very expressive, and just about any medium I could get my hands on was just like another vehicle for that. That brought me a lot of joy, and that other people seem to be able to get something from too. So it just was like an encouraged process, relatively so. Since I was a child, I took music classes. I took piano lessons when I was little. I took dance lessons for a long time, even through high school. I directed theater in college. I did all kinds of stuff. Writing was always a big part. So just expressiveness was just always part of the process. And it's interesting when we talk about there's making art and there's being an artist and all these things. And I've had a few moments in my life where it was just clear to me that I had maybe a different relationship than what I saw around me towards it. So I have this memory when I was young. I was before high school. I went to French school, a French school.
Where did you grow up?
French. I grew up outside of DC in Maryland. Okay. There's a translator, so it's part of being not in his home country. They sent his children to French school.
So both your parents are French?
Yeah. My father's born and raised in Paris. My mother was born in Morocco, but went eventually got to Paris.
I didn't know this.
Yeah.
Okay, that adds a whole another layer of color.
So even though I was living in the United States, I was being brought up in French culture. Totally. School was a lot of kids from all kinds of embassies, but French. So, but I had American neighbors. I was living in the country, and I remember this one American girl who was living across the street, and she was telling me all about the kids in her school, and she's talking about skaters. I was like, what? I was like, what's that mean? I was like, she's like, skater. I was like, you mean they like to skate? What? And she was trying to explain to me. I really couldn't grasp the idea that there was a whole identity around the fact that these people like to skate.
Right.
And I realized, over time that this was a very American thing.
To be an artist and to create art are two separate things. To skate and to be a skater are two almost independent things.
Well, it was just I think American culture, because it's it was the new world and a lot of cutting off from the old world. Right. And then this starvation for culture and identity and meaning and purpose.
Right.
That a lot of identities got created from seemingly superficial or external
right.
factors. which for me as a Jew, being raised as a Jew,
right?
Like I didn't understand. I was like, I'm a girl, I'm a daughter, I'm a, whatever. I'm like, I'm a skater. Oh, okay. Yeah.
So how central to your identity was being Jewish?
So very, very much so. We were brought up modern Orthodox, I guess, if you want to stick a title on it. My mother was a Bali Shuva. Like, I mean, she was brought up in traditional family, Morocco.
Right.
So it meant,
when did she leave Morocco?
She left Morocco. So, there was like a whole diaspora there because when Israel became a country, they would send children to Israel to I don't know, plant some roots there. She was 11 when she first went to Israel in boarding schools with her sister. And literally she was there with kids who would come out of camps and stuff. I mean, this was in the 40s and 50s.
After Israel as a state.
Yeah. But Morocco's everyone had Shabbos dinner, Shabbat,
Sure.
for sure. But then, some people went to the movies. It was just one of those things, But my mother had just a real affinity for it and made a conscious path to just make it her own. She went back to Morocco after a while and realized she couldn't just keep living the way, that way and around, in that community, I guess. And she wanted to go to boarding school. So she went in Paris to a from boarding school.
Right.
And Yekish. So my Moroccan mother became religious through Yekish kind of, path. And she was the only one out of all her many siblings, family of 7. She's the only one still to this day that
is connected to her Judaism.
In the way that she is. Everyone's connected in whatever way, but Shabbos and Kashrus, not compromised ever.
Right.
And it was a battle for her. So she really was so strong. And even family life and married life, she married somebody who was my father's a child survivor.
Really?
Yeah. I mean, he was hidden. He didn't go to the camps, but he, there's a lot of running. I mean, he was born in 1938. He was really tiny. But, having to be hidden in different places and monasteries and this and that. And literally, I think at the end of the war, the reaction, even though his mother came from more of a rabbinical kind of background, his father, who had been sent to labor camps and whatever, I don't know. I don't think he was brought up with much of it. They were actually, so there's a lot of details, but they were actually immigrants from Istanbul to Paris, in the 1920s.
Okay.
And after the war, it's just it's over. Literally, he was on a train. They were sending all the prisoners to death camps when they saw the end was near. And luckily, the tracks got bombed by partisan, what do you call it?
The partisans.
Yeah. And so everybody just walked off the train, and he ended up walking from the Alps or something, to Paris. And my father remembers his mother was getting them all dressed up to go to shul for Rosh Hashanah, and he was putting them in the suit, and all of a sudden there was a knock on the door, and there was their father. They, it's covered in boils and all these things, but he was alive.
He was alive.
Yeah.
Wow.
Just so. I think that was. I mean, my father did get a bar mitzvah. He learned how to do basic things, but he wasn't really brought up with it. So really, my mother was a massive introduction to all of it. And even though, Baruch Hashem, they're still totally married, but they still have very different understandings of what it means and how to practice. So my mother, even in the house, she was still the soldier. She would drive really far to go get kosher meat, and we were the only girls I remember in shul who had our elbows covered. She had a standard that was generally higher than the people around her, and it was actually we were the only house that the rabbi at the time, one of the few homes that he. Yeah.
Okay.
So. Anyways, that was
a strong Jewish foundation from your mother.
Strong, yeah.
A love of Judaism from your mother.
Right.
It's beautiful.
Yeah, Baruch Hashem.
And your creativity came from both of them?
So this is the thing. It's my father, and you see my father's handwriting, like, whoa, like they don't do that anymore. It's like, it's so gorgeous. And I remember, like, we'd have projects, my sister had a project at one point and he drew a violin for her, like just from a picture in a, the dictionary and all the shading. And because that's part of European education.
Yeah.
A little bit more. So like
the Renaissance man.
Yeah. I mean, it's not something like he was like, I'm an artist or anything, but he could do things and he had a knack for it, and I think an appreciation for it. So I think out of, my mother is really good at making things beautiful, but like maybe my father is more of an openness to creativity. So it's like, I don't know.
It's a beautiful combination.
Yeah.
It is.
Yeah, it's wild, right?
To describe that your mother makes things beautiful.
Oh, yeah. That. So Morocco, that's the culture there. Absolutely. Everything is beautiful.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, ceiling to floor to, I don't know if you've ever been.
I haven't. I'd love to.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
I just went not too long ago, and it's all like everything. It's not just function, it's form. You have to have form with the function.
Well, that's definitely something that got into you, and that's a beautiful, not aesthetic to have, but it's something to live with.
Yeah.
In college, you did theater, amongst one of the many things you did. Is that right?
Right. So basically, I came into college after spending like 3 years in New Orleans doing music. And I was just like, I could go to music school, but why? I already do music. I wasn't even interested in, like, the school that I went to was an art school. So they had like, a theater school, a dance school, an art school. And they also had the liberal arts. And I was just like, I really just like want to develop more of like, I was learning a lot of philosophy and things like that. But I was always doing art. I was always involved in doing art. And then I ended up kind of focusing my philosophy literature degree on theater studies. And so my main project was directing a play.
Amazing.
Yeah, Bakshan. So I got an award for it. That's pretty cool. And it was a really natural fit for me. Like it just made sense. And it was just like, it wasn't something I was like raised doing or, trained or whatever. It was just like a natural fit. It was something about, I think, my character that naturally lends itself to be a little bit fearless and maybe, for good and not so good maybe. But like, just like, yeah, I'll go for that.
Right.
And I think a lot of art is just, taking that plunge, just being bold and going for it.
Just expressing.
Yeah, fearless. But in order to be fearless, you have to have also that kind of selfless part where you could just, it's not about me. It's just like the experience. It's whatever wants to come through. I'm there for it. You know what I mean? So
at the same time, it does require a certain amount of confidence and mastery of a set skill,
100%.
so that you can just allow it to flow.
Right. So for me, mastery was something that came just more with like just continuously doing things. Like I didn't go to a school to train. I mean, drumming was, I don't know if you know that origin story, but like it was just I could tell you really quickly. I just turned 16 and I was in DC and there was a New Year's Eve party and there were bands playing and people in between bands were like going outside and doing what people do. And I was, hanging out inside and I was watching and seeing people just going up on the stage and picking up the instruments and playing. I was like, wow, I'd never seen that. And like, I always knew I had music. Like that was something, it was just so clear. I had an ear for it, rhythm, notes, whatever it was. Like I felt it so strongly. It was just like something I knew. So I was like, okay, I'll try. I went up there, like shook the tambourine. Okay, I got that.
Next.
And then the person behind the bongos moved. So I went there and my hands, it doesn't make sense, but for whatever reason, my hands instinctively knew what to do, like how to get different sounds. A rhythm was, rhythms were coming out.
Right.
And when you're in that, they call it the flow.
Sure. Flow
you
state,
just, you don't even, it's not about you at all. You're like not there basically. So even though it was very uncharacteristic of me, the there were these two huge congas in center stage, and there's nobody behind them. And then all of a sudden I was just like not in my body, but like moved behind those congas. And I was playing. And
the band was playing with you? Or was it just in between sets? There were just people playing?
Yeah, there was just
people playing. Okay.
At one point, I looked up and I realized I was the only one left on stage. The room had filled up with people, and they were just dancing to what I was doing. So I even had the presence of mind, and I don't know how or why, to like finish off with like a flared fill, whatever, right. And then I walked off stage, and it was just like, that was it. I was like,
you hooked.
Yeah. Not game over, new game.
Right. This is the beginning of something new, but that was at 16.
Yeah.
And so you kept.
So after that, so it's so funny because, I didn't realize I was extrovert until I was like late into my 20s. I was like, yeah, I thought for sure, like I was so in my head. I was just like, but something about like that experience, anyone I saw with an instrument, like all of a sudden there was like, conversation, communication.
Right.
I ended up playing on the streets of DC with a bunch of kids, and then eventually traveling across the country with them. So I had, it's a life of a lot of stories and adventures. We're not going to go through all of them, but like, I ended up just totally playing music across the country. Like that's, went from there. And then, so I was like, I figured, okay, I got this. I got it made. I'm going to just keep doing this. I call my parents. They're like, what's going on? They're like, you have to finish high school, young lady. I'm like, okay, fine. So I'm racking my brain, like, how am I going to do this and make sense of it? I was like, okay, if I go to Israel, send me to Israel.
That's the place to be. Right? That's where you can marry these two worlds. That you can make your parents happy. Was that one of the elements, as well as?
Yeah, I mean, so there's like
your Judaism, your expression, and making your parents happy.
So there was a secret like desire in me to become really from. Okay. Because I totally didn't relate to the modern orthodoxy stuff at all. Like I left it all by the wayside. It was just not talking to me. Well, all I did know, there were no Hasidim around, except for right before Pesach. All of a sudden, there were like all these beards and hats.
They show up.
Yeah.
Handing out matzahs and running around.
Yeah, just like, matzah factory and stuff. And I just, whenever I saw Hasidim, I was just like, I'm a girl. I can't even like be part of that world. And it's like, I can't even relate. I can't even go and have a conversation. Like, I just wanted to like, and I also wanted to express my Judaism. Like, it's so, for men, it's like, it's an easy thing. So I was always in dialogue with Hashem and trying to figure out where I fit in this whole thing. Modern Orthodoxy was not speaking to me.
Right.
But I always had this very visceral reaction when I would see Hasidim. And I didn't know what that meant. I didn't know much about Hasidim at all. But I always felt like, okay, I'm going to keep trying to find my way, and like Hashem will open the door. So I'm like, okay, maybe if I go to Israel, He'll open that door.
Right. To get more out of your Judaism.
Yeah, or to understand more, to get more deeply connected.
Right. So it was more a Judaic desire going to Israel rather than a creative desire.
Right.
But
yes, at the core.
Right, at the core.
It didn't happen though. Not that trip.
Not that trip. Okay. Mm-hmm. So you.
No, it was really wild. Like Hashem, like really wanted me to have a lot more adventure, I guess. It was really like.
That's wonderful. It's a good way to put it.
I mean, I couldn't explain because I was definitely like, I wanted, but like it was not happening. Literally, I was just like, I'd come off having this very spiritual journey where I was just, whatever, I was hitchhiking across the States, which was like basically all the Hashgacha Pratis lessons. And I mean, there were so many moments there where it was just like eye-opening, brain-opening, heart-opening. And then I was all of a sudden in high school with a bunch of high school kids that were just still very high school. And It was just like, what?
Skater.
Yeah, and it was the Gulf War, so we had all that. It was a lot of Americans left. It was like us and the Russians, the rest of us, and in sporting school. Anyway, so after high school, it was just like, and because of the war, like college, getting applications out was just a nightmare.
So you finished high school in Israel?
I did that one last year in high school. I graduated at 17, and it's like.
But you knew the journey was to come back to an American college.
Yeah, I mean, I figured. But then I was like, these kids that I had been playing in the streets of DC with, they're like, oh, we're in Seattle, come join us and join our band and whatever. And I was like, oh, that sounds fun. And then I was like, but I'm still on the East Coast for a little while longer. I have a cousin in New Orleans. I don't know much about New Orleans except something called Mardi Gras and Louis Armstrong, and maybe I'll check it out.
Maybe I'll check it out.
So I checked it out, and the first night, like, my cousin picks me up from the bus station, and he's a musician, and he brings me to this gig, this place called Little People's Place. It's this tiny place, painted yellow, black letters, Little People's Place, and all the owners, the whole family were like 5 feet and under. And I walk in, and it's just like, it was a Monday night in New Orleans, they have this whole like beans and rice thing, jambalaya, whatever. It's like a thing, Monday night. And then there was this band, and it was a tiny place, tables, all the generations. You had toothless old men, you had little kids, you had like, and you had this band. And there's like my Jewish cousin, on the guitar. There's this Creole massive man with like these big green eyes and massive hands playing the conga. There was another white guy on the stand-up bass, and then there was this trumpet player who looked and sounded exactly like Louis Armstrong.
Wow.
His name's Kermit Ruffins. He's like super famous, but like whatever. At the time, I was just like,
so this was your introduction to New Orleans.
I was like, I just walked into a painting from 1920s, and it's like alive and jumping. It's like, I can't believe this. There's something here. I didn't know what. I just like scrapped the Seattle plans and moved to New Orleans.
And how long did you stay there for?
So I stayed there almost 3 years.
3 years. So you're really steeped in some serious music.
Yeah.
I mean, real jazz, blues.
So the first band I played in there was my cousin. My cousin still has a New Orleans Klezmer All Stars. So so the first music I played there was klezmer. But yeah, I ended up playing for Mardi Gras parades in a samba orchestra, and I ended up playing for blues bands and jazz, whatever. I did everything. I did so many different things, and the one thing I kept like realizing was that I had a feel. I had a natural feel
for the music,
for whatever it was. Yeah, for whatever kind of music, and that also came out in dance. I remember when there was like Latin music playing, I wouldn't know how to move to it the way you're supposed to. It was just a natural feel. Mm-hmm. So, I don't know what the concept of talent, there's different theories of what talent is and, what gifts you have, what gifts are developed, whatever it was. But like something was very natural.
Well, you had a God-given talent, but then you spent a lot of time developing it. Right? It's always a combination of those two.
Right.
I don't think anyone's born with pure mastery. You're born with an ear. You're born with a feel. But then you got to develop it. You got to work on it.
Right.
To hone that skill to the point that, as you said, that it just flows through you.
Yeah. Yeah. Although I don't know how blasphemous this is or deluded or delusional, but I kind of feel like Hashem really made a lot of that flow through me from the get-go. Like it didn't make sense. Why would I know how to play jazz, or why would I know how to play Latin music, or why would I? It's not like I wasn't a master, and I'm still not a master. And I think that part of it is that I didn't identify with the need to master.
Right.
It was just expression.
It was just expression. Amazing. I don't think it's blasphemous at all. I think God gives us gifts and asks us to do something with it, for sure. And it's not about mastery. It's about being in the moment and doing the best we can going forward. So in those 3 years of New Orleans, where did your Jewish journey?
So
how did that impact your Jewish journey?
There was nothing Jewish in my journey in New Orleans, and at the end of it, I was starved. I literally, the most Jewish was this klezmer band and my cousin. Like I didn't see shluchim, I didn't see anybody. There were other Jewish musicians, but there was no Judaism.
Right, and so you felt starved, and you needed more.
I felt starved. So
how did you fill your Jewish needs?
So I was like, maybe
your soul. How did you feed your soul?
While I was there.
No, why? No,
eventually, I went to New York. The logical conclusion. I was like, oh, there's Jews in New York. Maybe I'll figure it out there. So I went to this art school called SUNY Purchase in New York. It was like not quite upstate, but kind of up there.
Okay.
Westchester. And but once again, I was fully on in the art world. No shluchim around.
Right.
A few, there were Jews there, but like, no yarmulkes, no tzitzis, no. So it was still another, like, turn, like,
the long way.
Yeah, super long way.
But at some point you ended up in Crown Heights.
So.
Is that the part of New York that.
So while I was in college, I joined up with this band. It was like really wild. I had a vision that I was like this new guy came to school, and I knew that I found out or heard that his brother was in this band that was super famous. They're like just Grammy award winning, whatever. And I just had this vision. I remember walking up the steps towards this place called North, whatever, and on the campus, and just knowing that I was going to play with these people, and I didn't even know them. And eventually, we all met up, connected, we played together. He had already a band. His brother already had a band, but I remember the day he wanted to go for a walk with me. He's like, I want this to be my band now.
Right.
Just like, hey, like it's
all for me. You felt it coming.
Yeah. And we recorded, we went on tours. I played in Europe, all the big rock festivals in Europe, or a lot of them anyways. Magazines, like the whole thing was like a whole.
Wow. So a lot of things I'm learning here. This is amazing.
Yeah.
So you really had a colorful past or real experience in the music. I mean, music was in your bones. Going on tour and being on stage and being super comfortable with it, and being able to express yourself through your music. So how did that lead? I only know you.
Where's the Jewish part?
Yeah.
I know, right? I was also where's the Jewish part?
I want to know about Bulletproof Stockings, because that's when I first heard about you.
Right.
And I don't know when Bulletproof Stockings started and where I was on my creative journey, but that blew me away. So let's get to that.
Let's get to that. So after a few years, like whatever, 3 or 4 years, we just finished a big European tour. I was back in New York, and I was like, okay, I can't, if I starve myself anymore from this, I'm just gonna, whatever. I started reading books. I started going to classes here and there, whatever. There was this one kid at one point on the corner of my street, and I was outside, and he was handing out flyers for a party, and we started talking, and I was like, what's your name? And he said, Mordechai. I was like,
okay,
what?
What's up in there?
And how Jewish can you get? It's not like David or Mordechai. I was like, so he's like, what? Why? Are you my Esther? It was like the best line ever about I didn't end up being his Esther, but at one point I ran into him, and it was like Erev Sukkot, and he was just like, what are you doing tonight? I was like, I don't know. He's like, come to Brooklyn. My family would love to have you. It's Sukkot, whatever. I didn't know Brooklyn. I was living on the Lower East Side.
Right.
When you live on the Lower East Side, you don't know
the world.
Yeah,
nothing.
You don't know Brooklyn. So he gave me directions, and I get out of the train station, and there's like hats and beers running everywhere, and whatever. It was just like this. That was the intro. It was like this wild night, and what was really wild about it was that, here was this hipster who looked like everyone else on the Lower East Side, but his name is Mordechai, and then he brings me to Crown Heights. I'm like, what in the world is going on? Like, how does that happen?
Right.
And this was early on. It was like, kids who are autistic in the community oftentimes left.
Go elsewhere.
Right. I mean, that was the danger. And that way, that's, it's not a new danger. And I mean, I think that in general, why arts weren't necessarily encouraged, at least traditionally in the Jewish world, or because I heard it said something like, tasting the fruit of art made them lose connection with the tree of life.
Interesting. I've never heard it that way.
So okay. I don't think, this was just like a concept that people were living by. And so they weren't finding a place for these, kids or whatever, these people who had this need and this just, human desire to express themselves.
Absolutely.
So here was this one kid who was like this bridge. It was like the first bridge I ever met in my life between this art world and Hasidism.
Nice.
So happened to be that first night in the sukkah. So I was like, I was used to being an only girl in situation. My band was literally like I was the only girl with like whatever Italian Catholic folks. That's the whole other thing. But here I'm like the only girl, I'm like in a sukkah, and I remember that there was a person. Mordechai kept talking to me about his friend Paz, and I was like, oh, that really strong presence behind me. So Paz ended up being my husband.
Yes.
So, and it was really, it didn't make sense as, love and spirituality, there's no sense as like a byproduct or whatever. But, he was like one test away from smicha, and I was one step off the tour bus, and, purple hair probably, and who knows, whatever. It was just like,
right.
But somehow
you guys connected.
Yeah, souls met. So eventually, Baruch Hashem, we got married, we moved to LA. I don't know why we just decided, like, done with New York for a little while, moved to LA. Babies. I directed another play while I was there. Soon I wrote and directed. It's like I did a whole bunch of story. And like, I was basically the school, they needed a director, and then it turns out they needed a play. And then I was like, okay, fine. Oh, you need a play. I'm about to have a baby, but like, we can do this. Like, no problem. So I jumped into it and literally wrote the play, gave birth, and then directed the play. It was like, my little one was with me, co-directing, assistant directing. Yeah, so it was just, even though music, like I let go of that whole like rock and roll thing, was just,
right.
Sorry, like way done. But at the same time, it was a painful divorce in the sense of like.
Of the music.
Yeah.
Of touring, of.
The whole world, that whole, right. Like my whole life was centered around that one thing, right. That one aspect of myself. And all of a sudden I literally had to stop listening to music. Like I couldn't, it was too, I don't know, like I needed to find another way to reintegrate myself, right. Into who I needed to be.
Well, the Rambam says to shift from one extreme to the other, to get to the middle, you got to go to the other extreme.
Right.
But you cut that all off. We'll say for love, but for your husband, for your relationship with your husband, for your Judaism, for your Yiddishkeit, how and why?
I can't really explain it. It was just like, I can't do that right now.
Right.
And if anything, like I remember my birthday, my husband, late husband, bought me a drum set.
Oh, okay.
Because I left everything on the East Coast, and he was just like, no, you're a drummer.
You need this.
Mm-hmm.
So he was into it.
Totally. Yeah. Gosh, he was brilliant in so many ways, and this was one of them. So, and then that's also around the time that I came up with the Bulletproof Stockings name. He's like, that's a great name for a band. I was like, okay, I'm gonna like make it my email, and maybe one day I'll have them. Because I was like trying to think, like, Hashem gave me music. It wasn't for nothing. Like, I didn't live that whole life of wild adventure on stage and be like for nothing. Nothing's for nothing. So
you had enough awareness that this is a gift from God, or all these experiences are a gift from God. How do I channel that?
How do I channel
in a Judaic way?
Yeah. So it was a big question mark. I mean, it was like, how do I? Because music, it's a language, and some people, you're speaking the same language with other people, not so much. And even though there were other women who were playing some music, whatever, it wasn't the same language that
you had spoken till now.
Right. So, I was playing, my Paz Elsham was a musician also, and so I played with him. He wrote songs, and we did, gigs every once in a while, but like, it was different. I was just like, it was just me and him, and
without an audience, just the two of you.
No, we played. We played for audiences.
Yeah,
we played for art houses. We played for like events. Like we recorded some songs together.
So that was part of your filling that creative need, but you felt that you needed more, or that there was more to give.
There was more. I knew that there was more. I didn't know, what it was, and I was happy to be there for his music but like, I always knew that there was more. Creatively, again, I was always involved. Like I told you, I wrote and directed a play and designed all the backdrops and everything, and I was commissioned for a painting. Like, it was just like different things, that I was doing. And babies, that was also pretty creative. Baruch Hashem. But there was always this kind of like a little bit of a torture. It's like, because I didn't know when. And maybe I was a little bit impatient. I was like, Hashem, like, what's up?
Right.
Where's my hint? Where's my, like, I'd had visions about those other projects that happened. And he gave me these hints. Over here, I was just not, like.
There was something, but you couldn't.
I couldn't see it yet.
You couldn't see it yet.
So, flash forward, oh, and by the way, we moved into the, he was on his way to Smicha. He got Smicha, right. And we moved into the Chabad community. And slowly but surely, it was clear that that's where I wanted to go. But like Baruch Hashem, I had my process. Not like I didn't wear a sheitel until the bris of my first son.
Okay.
I remember like Chalav Yisrael. I didn't even know about Chalav Yisrael growing up, and it was like the day I found I was pregnant, Chalav Yisrael. It was just like, wow. There's no way I was gonna, compromise it. Like, so it was a gradual process, but it was really mostly about like being around Hasidim and seeing Hasidim. It was just like all those, hippie values that seemed so high and falutin, but I like all these philosophies that I'd been exposed to, whether in college or whether in my travels, or, there were a lot of words, but here people were actually living it. People were doing it. People were waking up in the morning and like feeding, people in a hospital and going to visit this person and, helping. It was just like, this was the life, it's like, yeah, you had a job and yeah, you raised your kids, but it was infused with doing good and making the world a better place, like actively.
Right.
And not everybody was a shliach or had a plaque on their wall, had their name.
They were still doing.
This is it. This is a way of life. This is real. This is truth. These are the people I want to be like.
Part of.
Yeah. So, anyways, flash forward. My husband passed away suddenly, and I was just like, okay, I have 4 babies. What do I do? Where do I go? The youngest was 4 months.
Oh God.
I had 4 months, 2 years, 3.5, 6.5. So everyone kind of assumed that I would just kind of, like, it happened while I was at my parents' house, and the rabbis were all like, stay by your parents for now. That's the most support you'll probably get.
Right.
Like, we'll figure out, like, whatever. And everyone kind of assumed that I would just kind of revert back to whatever I came from.
Right.
And it was just like so mind-boggling to me, because I was like,
no, that was my old life. This is my life. It wasn't. You weren't doing it for pause. You were. This is you.
Yeah. This is my. It'd be like forgetting my name. It was
right.
like, this is my relationship to Hashem, like, and the Rebbe, and these are relationships. Like, right. What do you mean? So, for me, I realized that the only way that I would feel comfortable raising my kids would be around Hasidim. Sounds like Crown Heights. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Only slightly intense.
Only slightly intense, right?
But there is a network. Crown Heights is an incredible community. There's many layers of community there, but
1,000%.
You can get a really healthy support system in Crown Heights.
Oh my goodness, it's an army of angels over there. Anywhere in the frum world, Chabad is like what I know most, but like I've seen it in Satmar, I've seen it in Ger, I've seen it like from Jews. It's part of that's part of being from. You're a good person who does good things.
Yeah.
It doesn't mean everybody's perfect. It doesn't mean they aren't, but like that's the light post, the what you call it? Yes.
Yeah.
So it was unreal. Like, I didn't know anybody in Crown Heights. Right. Happened to be I got hooked in really quickly. So I was still in my 30 days where I couldn't listen to music, and there's we knew him as a young bacher in California, but he was since just got married and had a baby. Mordechai Lightstone, I don't know if I could say names here, but
sure.
I'm still very close with his mother. Anyways, he was close with Paz, and at one point he just decided, him and his wife, to come and pick me and my children up and bring my kids to the Lag BaOmer parade. So we went on this wild adventure. I'm going to backtrack even a little bit more. There was already an angel staying with me who was pretty much saving my life, who is now running one of the most successful shuls in Crown Heights, Ellie Engelson. So I knew that he used to come babysit for us, and he would also he was always had young guys. He was working in schools and always lighting fires wherever he went, and he would bring a bunch of guys over to play music in Paz's studio downstairs, and so we had this relationship. Anyways, everything happened with Paz, and I get a text from Ellie should I come? I was like, I'm sure I'll come.
Right.
What was I thinking? And the last day of Shiva, I can knock on the door. There's Ellie Engelson, one-way ticket to my parents' house, moves in, and he's helping me with my babies.
Right.
Everyone else around me was in such shock. I was literally in a room by myself with these
four tiny children.
Yeah, I mean, listen, everyone did what they could, but
they were also in shock.
They were totally in shock. So it was just me and them, and trying to be a mother and a grieving wife.
And the kids, they lost their dad, but life has to go on. Diapers and feeding and just being,
all those.
Being a mother.
Yeah.
Caring for your kids.
Oh my gosh. But then I also had to communicate, and I had no one to really communicate with until Ellie moved in. And he was literally helping me with diapers, helping me walk all the children. I remember he'd wrap sometimes the baby on him so I could push the stroller, and he'd go to school with my oldest, just unheard. This is
just giving, just pure giving.
Pure giving. And everyone's like, what's going on? What's the story? I was like, there's no story. You guys don't get it.
It's just
goodness.
Yeah. He saw a need and he filled it.
That's exactly it. And his mother was pushing him to stay. People were going to his mother, it's not right. She's like, he's saving her life right now.
Right.
Everyone back off. Right. And it was really just we're so close. And when we moved to, why did I bring him? Oh, so he came with us to Lag B'omer Parade. And so he took care of my boys with his friend. And I had to leave, just so I would be around music. And as I'm walking away, I hear somebody call out my name. And it's Hani Marcus, who's now Hana Zirkin. Hani Marcus was a famous Marcus,
Sure.
Tribe. And she's from LA, so she knew me from there. And I'm like, oh, I have to go. She's like, oh, why don't you come to my grandmother's house? The famous address, 701 Montgomery. And so I did. She took me there. Her grandmother was the matriarch of all the Friedmans.
Yes, sure.
God bless her soul. They took me in. They fed me. They're like, what's going on? They're like, oh my gosh, you have to come for Shavuos. Come stay by us, no problem, however long you want. So this is my, I was like, Hashem was opening a door. And right. What a door.
Right.
These are just unbelievable people. Literally, when we did go for Shavuos, and I was literally on the phone, all day, all night with, rabbi this and rabbi that, and trying to figure out how to rebuild. Where do I go? What do I do? And I had this newborn, and, and they're helping me, keeping the kids with, the Legos and this and that and whatever it was, and just trying to figure out what I should do and where I should go. And, anyways, long story short, somebody popped into my story who had known Paz in Berkeley, because Paz was from Berkeley, knew exactly who I was before talking to me. Basically, he came because he knew the Friedmans. Ellie was like, there's something about that guy. I want to go follow him out. We'll talk afterwards. I was like, cool, whatever. He said, as soon as he walked out, the guy said, is that Paz's wife and children? Yeah. Jumped into my story, had a house, had an apartment in the bottom. He's like, we moved in. That was it. Chof Gimel of 2011. Moved in with my babies, and that was the start of our Crown Heights, existence. So the last thing on my mind is, how am I going to start a band? That's just not, you know what I mean? Everything was zipped up and in the closet, you know what I mean? How many other...
You had enough on your plate.
Oh my goodness.
Right.
I remember there was, so Ellie's mother came to town. Her name's Lolita, very good friend of mine. And on her way out, they wanted to do a Malav Malka, and she wanted me to come and play. So I hadn't, played anything yet, but okay, I was like, okay, I'll come play. And it felt like a shift, that night. I touched the drum, and all of a sudden I was getting all these calls for gigs. People wanting, you heard it was a drummer in town, One of these calls was Peril. And I had a feeling about, I didn't answer all the calls, but I had a feeling about this one.
Okay. So your feelings are back.
Right?
Intuition was there.
I'm telling you, it is what happened. So I went, I remember, so I, found someone to watch the kids, and I remember it was like a totally rainy night, and make my way across the town and go to her, and she starts playing me her music. And I instinctively knew exactly what to do, what it needed. Like, it was just, I left that place and literally had the vision. I was like, we're going to play Berlin. I don't know why Berlin. I've never been to Berlin, never wanted to Berlin. I was like, this is going to blow. This is Bulletproof Stockings. Now, even though in my heart, because it was still so new, I was just like, this is Bulletproof Stockings. Like, I kept that under wraps. I was like, let's see where it goes. But literally,
But you knew.
It was so clear. Like, within a month, we recorded our first single. Basically, she'd gotten herself a gig for Hanukkah to work for the Yocheved. Side off was doing a big thing that she would do on Hanukkah. I forget what it was called now, something about light, but anyways. And so she got this gig and she wanted a drummer. So like we figured we'd record one of the, songs, and we played a gig within that, I met her October, Chaf Gimel. We played our first gig, Chaf Gimel Kislev. It wasn't Chaf Gimel October, it was Chaf Gimel Cheshvan. Chaf Gimel Kislev.
So it's a month later. You met her, and a month later, you're playing your first gig.
Yeah, and let me tell you, that first gig, first of all, I'm setting up the drum set in the room, and people are like, what do you do with that? It's like, okay, well, I guess we'll see.
Should wait and see.
And I hit the first bam, and it literally, like, the room jumped. The whole room jumped. It was just like, it was unreal. Like, they had never heard it. We were playing rock and roll. I mean, it was just drums, guitar, Peral's powerful voice and presence. And it was just like, nobody.
You were bringing a totally new sound to the community.
Totally new sound.
And yet it was embraced.
By some.
By some, okay.
Yeah. By the ones in the room, for sure. Yeah, I mean, like, within no time, we were getting press. People knocking on our doors.
Well, that was, I mean, at the time, and still even today, it's unique. I mean, a girl band, if that's what it's called in mainstream, a rock and roll girl band, only Hasidim, Hasidic females, only playing to female audiences. I mean, and still filling the house. All of those are, were revolutionary.
1,000%. Yep.
That's so awesome. So God gave you a voice.
Mm-hmm.
God told you this is it and this is it. So what did you're filling your creative needs, that's for sure. And it's in a Judaic environment, so you're filling your Jewish needs. How much of it was about you? How much of it was about other? Did you feel that, like, okay, this is it. This is what my whole background was building me up to, or was this just another step in the journey? What was your relationship to all this success, all this, impact? I mean, forget, success in terms of, or maybe it's tied in. I mean, the impact you were having is directly through the people in the audience, but as well as people realizing, hey, Judaism is so important. I'm bringing it all together.
Wow, that's like 50 questions. Let's see what I can make of that. So I definitely felt like, that whole rock and roll thing, like, obviously this was what it was for.
Right.
And the purpose of Bulletproof Stockings was to create a space where women could just come and just be who they were. It's like, again, like, we don't know we're sick until something hurts. We don't know we're a gender until the opposite walks in the room. It's just like, there's sometimes you have spaces where you can just be an neshama. Right. And not, it's great to be a woman, don't get me wrong, but like every once in a while, like you just, it's also great to just be an neshama.
Right.
And so we wanted to create a space where women could just be, and, with all the joy and all the expression and all the dancing and all the, freedom, and uplifted. I mean, Peral's lyrics were all very Hasidic based. You know, she's tremendous poetic talent, and you know, that was her own journey that she was bringing into it. Sorry. So we were touching a lot of people, and we were touching people also who hadn't heard those sounds in so long because they were bald shubas and they'd shut all that out.
Right.
So they, you know, for them it was just like, you're feeding me. Like I've been wanting to, you know, needing to hear drums and needing to hear, you know, like strong vocals. And, yeah. And then we were also like creating an avenue for girls within the fold that maybe had like desires or tendencies towards that, but like we're giving them a place within.
Right. A healthy within to express.
Right.
Clearly. So
they didn't have to go out.
Right.
Because a lot just did, you know, so we were like, you know, and every concert, we would bring out, you know, new talents to open up for us and just, you know, giving platforms. Like that's what we wanted to do. Just raise up the bar for women in music in the Hasidic world.
Oh, so powerful. That is so powerful.
Sure. So, yeah, the Goyish world was eating it up like candy. I mean, we definitely got Jewish press. We also got a whole lot of
non-Jewish press.
Yes. I mean, we didn't end up physically going to Berlin, but Berlin came to us and literally filmed a documentary that showed on Berlin TV.
Wow.
Like my house was constantly with cameras, and my little kids were like, wow.
Well, how were they handling that? Well, that was their reality. When you grow up as a child, did it help them?
So
through their upbringing and their...
You know, I need to have that conversation with them because it's been a while now and wonder like how they view it all.
Sure.
There were hard parts because playing gigs, I had to get babysitters.
Right.
And I had to leave little ones, and that was really heartbreaking. But I also felt like Hashem was giving me a way to heal.
Yes.
You know, it was just like right away in action.
Right.
Action. I was like, you know, like now, you know, not that I'm an action oriented person, but like I was never going to be hiding under covers or, you know, that wasn't going to be it. But like Hashem, like, you know, made that really, you know, apparent, like you're needed right now for this. And it was really like, that was a thing with me and art and music, whatever. It's just like, it was like wherever I ended up going, Hashem put me on stage. It wasn't like, I was like, I need to be, or I want to be, or this is what, it was just like, I need to know where I'm needed.
Right.
And, and Hashem made that really clear, or at least, I mean, what do I don't, in my, you know, limited understanding of what Hashem wants. But like, it seemed that was needed at the time. So I was there for it. And we went full bravado. It was just like, did gigs. We're uncompromising about having female audiences, which some people were not cool with, and some people were very cool with.
Right.
You know, in the Jewish world also we had, you know, some people were like, why are they doing that? Well, it's not sneeze, and it's not. We would have conversations. I remember we spoke to Rabbi Manis Freeman, just, you know, like even about, you know, hashtagging Kol Isha. He's like, no. It's like, you do what you do.
Right. You don't even need to put on that warning label.
Yeah. He's just like, what you're doing is in order, like, we knew this, and this is what we were telling them also, like, we're just trying to reach, you know, women. And it wasn't only to reach Jewish women, although obviously that was a focal point, but it was just to even create a space for women in general.
Right.
Because how many spaces out there do women have to just be with women?
Right.
Like everything is, you know, all those barriers are breaking down all around us. Like we wanted to be like, no, this is a female space.
Wow.
And of course we got those questions like, well, what about trans and what about blah? It's like, listen, we're not going to check, okay? Like you do you, but like this is for women. You know what I mean? Like, there was actually a precedence in the punk world for women to have like female spaces, and it was a very different purpose, but like, you know, there was some connecting there. So not different purpose, but like a different context, obviously. Right. So, you know, whatever, we got allies in all kinds of different worlds. And again, word went out really. I mean, Al Jazeera came and did something on us. Like, it was literally like BBC, like a BBC. I know maybe that was my older band, but there was like something everywhere, and wherever, even now to this day, like I go somewhere and people hear Bulletproof Stockings, there's usually somebody. It's like, wow,
that they were impacted at the time by it.
Yeah.
Amazing. And you were comfortable with all this attention and all this fame, we'll call it? I mean, you felt this was your calling.
Yeah.
I mean, and previously you had your brush with fame, that your previous band, so you were kind of familiar with it.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't. I kind of just thought it as another thing, like something. I wasn't like, it was just, oh, you want to talk to me? You want to ask me? I'll answer questions, like whatever. It wasn't like I didn't. It wasn't like, how do I deal with fame? It's like, oh, Tuesday we have an interview. Oh, okay, so Tuesday's an interview. You know what I mean? Like I don't really know how to explain that, but it was just.
It was natural.
Yeah.
It was part of the process.
It's just a little bit of how I roll. That might be a little bit clueless about it or naive or whatever it is. It was just like, oh, that's what we're doing today. Okay, cool. But same thing with going on stage. I never had stage fright. It was just kind of, oh, this is what I'm doing. This is what I'm doing it for. Let's go. It's just like, so yeah, it was all just kind of let's go. Whatever. Unfortunately, within art, and this is part of like the art world thing, we are human, our egos, there's so that eventually, like, there was a bit of a breakdown in the band, and
sure.
Could be that it just ran its course and everyone had to go and do other things, and everyone is doing like very much other things. But it needed to be like,
it had such impact. It had such tremendous impact, and yeah, it did what it was meant to do, and then nothing lasts forever.
Right.
And that everyone is, you made that impact, you created that space, and now, as you have another band.
I do have another band. So I started a band called Newman All Stars. When did I start that? In gosh, I can't remember what year it was. I should know that. I should know these things. But whatever it was, I remember it was after Rabbi Schwartzy passed away. It was kind of like a tribute to him because he was always a big fan of me. He actually told my kids, like, "You're my mother's biggest fan." It's like such an honor. Anyways, that's a whole other story. It's from my LA life. We spent a lot of time there.
Your creativity continues.
Creativity continues. I did also go back to school to do therapy, which is
okay, a whole other conversation.
Yeah, whole other conversation. But as far as I'm concerned, it's just another way to be creative.
Right. Wow, that's awesome.
Yeah. I'm gonna throw this one out just because we'll end it on this if you want. I was listening to a class I read by Kaplan on the way here, all about creativity and purpose and whatever. And he said a lot of wonderful things, and I encourage everyone to go listen to the class. One thing he mentioned was something that is kind of known, that Michelangelo said something about, how he didn't see the block of marble. He saw the angel that needed to be released, and that was his job, was to release the angel from the block.
Right, wow.
So whether you're doing that with music, or you're doing that with art, writing, whatever, or you're doing that with therapy, literally that's all I want to do.
Just release the angels.
Yeah, release the healthy, beautiful, the godly. That's it. That's the work.
That's incredible. So that leads me into our last question.
Yeah.
Is Orange Socks for the young creatives. What advice do you have for young creatives within the Hasidic community, within the Jewish community, who are trying to find their expression, their orange socks, if you will?
So I would say, art is it's a human instinct, and a human need for expression. Comes in different ways. The Jewish part is just about, life has meaning, and what we do has purpose, and art, if it's for uplifting and inspiring, and that's the only Jewish part about it. Like, you don't have to paint pictures of challahs for it to be Jewish,
Right.
Rabbi Menash Freeman would say, actually, and just, different ways of bringing either beauty or meaning, or make people think more deeply, or whatever your purpose, your angle is.
Form of expression.
Yeah, like it's there's a place for it. There's a need for it. I'll say, actually, I'm going to bring in what Rabbi Kaplan was saying. It was so brilliant. It was just like the Rebbe was like very clear about how, you have a gift, you have something, use it for uplifting.
Yep.
And just like, at one point in our history, sculpture and art was used for the Chet Ego, for like the darkest, lowest point we were at. Like now, the way to fight fire with fire is actually using art to keep up, countering that.
Right. And that's our job. That's our job to take out.
This generation particularly. No, for sure. This is it. It's like, we don't have to worry anymore about like, am I doing something Jewish? Am I not? Like, everything that you can use at your disposal, use it to uplift yourself, the people around you, like bring meaning, bring depth. If you're an artist because Hashem gave you a particular ability to see something that average maybe people weren't, don't. So bring it out. Like
take that gift and run with it.
Yeah.
Amen. Dalia, thank you so much.
My pleasure.
It's incredible, really incredible. And you're not over yet. Of course not. You got a lot more creativity and a lot more journey to go.
Yeah, for sure.
Thank you.
Thank you.
היום נעשה משהו בלתי נשכח